Have you been following the trial of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard? No? I didn't think so. I don't think there probably are many that are out there still following that trial. I think a better question might be, have you heard anything about the trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard? That is, did you know there was such a thing? Yeah, I thought probably most of you did. Unless you're one of the lucky few that just never has time or doesn't like to get on social media or watch the news broadcast, you probably have heard something about that trial. It's become a bit of a media circus. So that kind of brings me to one more question. Do you wish you'd never heard anything about the trial? Well, believe it or not, that trial reminds me of a Bible verse. And so as soon as we get done with this little nature clip, we're going to share a little bit about, not about the trial. I'm kind of burned out on the trial, but we're going to share a little bit from the scripture and the verse that trial reminds me of. This is a short midweek devotion from the Littleton United Methodist Church. Johnny Depp trial, his ex-wife says that he abused her, and she wrote an op-ed that caused him to lose a movie deal and a lot of money. She sued him for his abuse. He, on the other hand, says she's lying, and he sued her for libel and defamation of character, trying to get money out of her because he lost his deal. He puts a lot of people on the stand to back him up, then she comes and she puts people on the stand to back her up. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into that. It's gone on for a long time. But it reminded me, as I was going through the court case, of a proverb that many of us have heard since we were children, and we might not have known that it came straight out of the Bible. I'm in Proverbs chapter 18, in verse 17, and it just simply says this: you may think that you have won your case in court until your opponent speaks. Or, as I've heard it most of my life, the first person to talk sounds like they're telling the truth until the second person opens their mouth. Have you ever heard that? That passage of scripture, by the way, is just a little bit of wisdom literature, and the purpose behind it, the meaning, is not that the second person to speak is always the one that's right, or that the first person to say something is always lying. But the point is that we should keep an open mind. We shouldn't jump to conclusions too quickly, too hastily. We ought to sit back and kind of think about it a little bit. Maybe gather more information before we make a decision. Now, the United States of America has, I think, about 329.5 million people. 31% of those identify with the Democratic Party, and 25%, something like that, identify with the Republican Party. Maybe off just a little bit. But either way you do it, there are millions of Democratic people that lean politically to the left, Republican people that lean politically to the right. And here's a question I have. With all the topics we have, abortion, immigration, war, the economy, we could just go down the list of all sorts of topics that we disagree on right now. There are millions of people inside the United States right now that if you ask them a question, any question you want that has to do with any of those topics, say gun control, if you ask them their views on gun control, you'll have a good idea what their view is on abortion, or what their idea is on immigration, or maybe what their idea might be on a death penalty, or on a war, or it's just on the economy, on minimum wage. So what does gun control have to do with abortion, with minimum wage, and immigration? These topics are a little bit different, and yet for millions of Americans, if you know the answer to one question, you pretty much can guess the answer to a lot. Now, I may be a bit of hyperbole. It may not be quite like that, but it sure feels like it sometimes. So here's my question. If millions of Americans go right down the list on all these different topics with different pros and cons, and they line up so solidly within their parties, is that an indication they may not be thinking for themselves? Maybe so. I'm kind of excited. In July, when I get back from my next Arizona trip on Tuesday evenings at the church, we're starting a new class of critical thinking for the Christian. I'm kind of looking forward to it. This Bible verse says, basically to us, that we need to weigh all the data. We need to listen to all the views. We need to take time not to shoot off our mouth before we know what we're talking about, all the pros and cons. And it says, the first person to speak seems right until the second person comes and presents their case. We sometimes have our minds made up before the first person or the second person talk by the group we identify with. Now, there's some pressure on that too, because it may be that you line up with your political party or your friends or whatever they are with 6 out of 7 different areas, but that one area that you don't line up with, that might be enough for them to think you're an outsider or that you're not really one of them. There's a lot of weight, a lot of pull to follow along with the herd. But the passage warns us that a wise person doesn't just automatically go with the herd. There is an illusion of safety in numbers, or at least it sure feels safe. If you are, I hope you never are, but if you are someday in a small vehicle, a motorcycle, a four-wheeler, or some small Jeep or something, and you find yourself out west with a stampede of bison coming your direction and the herds all come approaching you, it sure feels safer to turn around and run the same direction as the herd, the same speed as the herd, and rather than go against the herd until the herd goes over a cliff together. That passage reminds us to think for ourselves. There's something else that I want to bring up before I'm finished with that passage. We talk about whether or not you agree or disagree with this group or that group or the herd mentality. It's also okay not to have an opinion at all. I mean, there are things that we haven't thought through yet, and we don't have to pretend like we have thought everything through on every area. It's okay to change our mind. It's okay to think for ourselves. It's okay to withhold an opinion until we have more information. I remember one time I was a guest speaker at a church, and after it was over, during the service, people were asking questions, and I was trying my best to answer them. And someone answered a very theologically difficult question. Someone asked of me, and I just told the truth. I said, I don't know. I don't know. After the service was over, they kind of teased me a little bit, shook my hand, and said, "First time in my life I ever heard a preacher say he didn't know something." He was just teasing me. And I thought afterwards, we do, all or many of us seem to feel like we have to project an air of knowledge about whatever it is we're talking about. We have to have an opinion, right or wrong. At least we have to have an opinion. We're not going to be wishy-washy. And there are many things that we just don't have enough information yet to know how it's going to turn out. Sometimes we have to act upon the best information we have, just do the best we can with it. All of that's kind of wrapped up in that verse. Well, as usual, we have a few more days left this week. A few more days to act prudently, a few more days to make mistakes, a few more days to say our wise sayings, and a few more days to stick our foot in our mouth. We'll probably do a little bit of both between now and Sunday. Well, as you go into this week, you may be faced with decisions or judgments that you need to make. May God fill you with wisdom and discernment and the patience it takes to develop wisdom and discernment.